In a previous lesson, we learned how to identify whether we had an independent clause that could stand alone or a dependent clause that needed something else to go with it, like because or while. And we also looked at how we determined if we had a phrase. So, what I want to do now is I want to take that same concept and extend it a little bit further to show how we compound using semicolons in ways that maintain meaning and logical order. So let's try this first step right here. People feel safe. Well, I'm talking about people. So that is my subject. What do? They feel. That's the verb. So I'm going to use that as read because that's kind of the heart of the sentence is a verb. That means that I could make a sentence like that. I could do the psst test. Psst, people feel safe. And you would know what I was talking about. So I'm going to color that in green. Here's another one. A pet will often sit compassionately. I want to see if this works. So I've got a pet. That's the who or what. And what do? They will and then sit. That is the verb. And this could be a sentence all by itself. So I can make that an independent clause. Here's the next one without being judgmental. Well, being is a verb, but what I know from this and my other studies is that without is a preposition. So this right here is a prepositional phrase. Now, here's another one that might I see when. Well, I know that that's one of my words that can cause a sentence to be dependent. So, confiding, well, that's something we do. That's a verb. And do the pets confide? No, they're not confiding. That they're confiding in something else is there. So what we see in this piece right here is that there is no subject in here. So it can't be a clause, either dependent or independent, even though it has a verb in it. And then we have these two right here are prepositional phrases. Now, here's the next thing we're going to do. We're going to combine the sentences. And the semicolon is the thing that makes the difference between the two sentences that are there whenever we are putting them together. So I'm just going to take my little box right here and I'm going to say, I think people feel safe is on one side. And I'm going to go ahead and take this one and put it right here. Now I'm going to be able to use some ideas right here. Where do these other phrases go? Which ones are they talking about? Well, people feel safe when confiding in their pets. I can put that right here. I can also reverse that. When confiding in their pets, that's now an introductory phrase that I would need to put a comma there. Now I can have these things here. A pet will often sit compassionately. How and where and when. So I think I'm just going to put it here, here, and here. Now, I'm thinking a little bit about it seems like a lot to put all three of these together, three prepositional phrases, one right after the other. And it seems a little bit wonky. So I think I'm going to change it around a little bit and I'm going to use that comma somewhere else. So I want the main point to be at the very first part here. People feel safe when confiding in their pets. Well, why? And I think that that's where this one goes. The whole point is that the pets are not judgmental. And so I can take that comma now that I have an introductory prepositional phrase, and then I have the sentence as it should be. So let's look at how this information can help us make decisions about whether or not student sentences are written in the correct way. Look at this one right here. We'll put it in the place before where the semicolon goes, right here along the line. And then what we need to do is we need to make sure that, like before, that we have a sentence, a dependent clause on each side. So we know that this part of the sentence was already there as our dependent clause, and that this one, without being judgmental, was a phrase. That means that this example is not written correctly. A semicolon is not needed there, neither is a comma. Now I have another example. People feel safe when confiding in their pets without being judgmental. Again, I have people feel safe as my dependent clause. And now I have independent, not dependent. Often will sit compassionately. This is now my independent clause on the other side. Now, you'd think that I would be correct here, but I want you to notice something. Where we put the phrases needs to be as close to what it's talking about. And look at this right here. Who's being judgmental? The pets or people? The people feel safe without being judgmental? That doesn't make any sense. It's the pets that are not judgmental. So this one is not correct. We call this a misplaced modifier. Without being judgmental does not belong with this dependent clause, independent clause. Here's another example. Without being judgmental, a pet will often sit compassionately. I know that this is my sentence right here, so I know that this part is okay. But I put a semicolon, which means that the other side of this also has to be a sentence. And what I see is that I have two phrases on the other side that do not constitute a complete sentence.